Hi, Chica. Welcome. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Michaela. One of my really good friends in my neighborhood is named Michaela. Sophia, welcome. So nice to have you all here. Um, Hi, Padel. Welcome. If I don't pronounce your name correctly, please feel welcome to send a phonetic spelling in the chat and I will not repeat my mistake. Yeah, a big theme of GRE Prep is how to learn from our mistakes effectively, and I try to practice that in my work too. Hi, Navpreet. It's so nice to have you here again. I've seen you in a few of these. It's been fun. Cool. So I know Navpreet has been here before. If you could let me know in the chat, have you been to one of these before or not? So I'm going to have a couple questions for everyone, and you're welcome to chat to everyone. Sometimes it's kind of nice to see each other, but just if you could chat, maybe have you been to a pre-prep hour before? That's one. Um, where are you geographically? With as much detail as you want to share. You can tell us the continent, the country, the city, whatever you want to say about that. That's fun. And where are you at in your studies? Are you taking it tomorrow? Or are you just starting? And then the important thing is that I run these sessions as these like choose your own adventure hours. So I've done them different ways over the years. I've been doing GRE for 8 years, and I have tried to think a lot about like what's the best value that I can give people, right? Because these free prep hours are really special to me because it's when I get to give away something. It's really nice to give away something of value. So I always think about what can make these most valuable. And the thing I've been liking to do is to do an open Q&A, but in a structured way. Kind of balance this. So let me know these three things, and then also let me know what is your single most burning GRE question? What question could you ask that you think would most benefit you to know the answer? And I'm going to have everyone ask that question, and then I'm going to see if I can take those questions and I can structure them into a kind of coherent lesson. So my goal, and sometimes depending on number of people, I may or may not hit this goal, but I will strive to answer all questions in maybe a way that's sort of fun or interesting, or, for everyone. So to balance individual needs and the needs of the group. Cool. So let us know the answers in the chat to those questions. You can chat to everyone. So in the chat, I'd like to know these things, right? What can you chat to everyone? Kind of this info, or just me. And then if you can figure it out easily, if you could put this Q&A question in the Q&A function. There's sort of two different things, right? There's like chat and Q&A. If that's not happening, that's totally fine. Just do what you can. But I would love to get from everyone responses to these. You may have not realized this, but these audiences actually for these tend to be quite small. And so you may have come thinking this would be a very big and personal webinar. And it's not. I'm going to try to really like give each of you something personally if I can, but then also have some lessons for everyone. And so please let me know and think about your question. And I'm just going to give everyone a couple of minutes to do that. I'm going to turn off my camera so you can just kind of chat without me staring at you. And then when I've collected the information, I'm gonna kind of start. So take a couple minutes to reflect and chat me the answers to these questions. Cool, and I've got your responses. Let me know what your question is now that you're a month away. That's an interesting point to be at. Cool. All right. So in a couple of weeks. So this is good. We're going to be thinking about timelines of like 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I like it. So I can speak to that, but I'm also happy to speak to other timelines as you let me know, and let me know what your question is. Sophia, I really aspire to move to Los Angeles. I tried to do a juice cleanse recently. I was like, I'm gonna get ready to move to Los Angeles, but I couldn't do it. So I'm still not ready to move to Los Angeles. I'm gonna stay in New York and eat pizza with the rats a while longer. I am so excited you asked about reading comprehension. It is, when I kind of was a few years into teaching, I became a manager and I got involved in managing and training teachers. And I would help run this big annual conference for test prep teachers. And people came from like all over the country and the world. It was super fun. And the topic that I chose the year that I managed the content was teaching reading comprehension. And I learned that it's both like the hardest thing in a way to teach or to get better at, but that it's also like very solvable too. And so I've put a lot of thought into particularly what you've described. I want to talk about some things I think that can be done in your timeline, right? Like you're taking the exam on Saturday. Um, but reading comp can be slow to improve. So I'm curious, what is your final deadline? Do you think you might be able to take the GRE again after Saturday, or is that like your last sitting that's possible? That makes sense, Sophia. That would be a helpful follow-up question. Oh, Chica, you asked my other favorite question. Wow, how exciting. I've gotten two of my favorite questions tonight. I'm having a really lucky day, actually. So this feels like the cherry on my lucky day. So how do you break from high 150s into 160s? And Chica, I think also if you might let me know what timeline you're interested in doing that in, that might give me some specific advice for you. So yeah. So I love this because it's hard, right? Like, I don't know if this is your experience, but something I see a lot is people get like they work pretty hard, they study pretty steadily, they put in the hours, people are usually not failing to see success because they're not like ambitious and hardworking and disciplined, right? Those are almost never the issues. But you put in the work and you get to the high 150s, and then you just keep putting in the work and the score doesn't go up. And it gets super frustrating, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm putting in the work and the score is not going up, and that's like really complicated to deal with just as a person, and it gets frustrating. But then I think that there's a couple things that I can tell you that are helpful in your situation, and then I can give you specific advice based on your timeline. But broadly, like, this is a normal plateau. GRE improvement is not linear, right? Like GRE improvement happens in like a stair pattern. And I think a lot of learning is like this, that we improve and then we get stuck, and we improve and then we get stuck. And this stuckness is frustrating. So sometimes the answer is just to like push through, but a lot of times the thing that will speed it up is to change how you are studying. Like, I think that sort of anyone has enough time, I think they can get to any score with this test, right? Like, you can just keep pushing. And I see people do this. Like, I see people push at this for like a year or 2 years, and they just sort of push across that boundary. And that's sometimes the best fit for people and how they work. But the thing that I think you can do to most like turn the dial on how fast you get through this plateau and to sort of trigger breakthrough for yourself is to look at the way in which you're studying and see what can be adjusted. So just think about that. Tell me what timeline you're working with, and then maybe I'll return to that and kind of offer some concrete advice around that. Cool. All right. Cool. So, Sophia, you have a few days. And let's see, just I have to look at a calendar because you know, that's where my number reasoning is. Spatial number reasoning. I have to look at a calendar. Yes, that's like 2.5 weeks. Cool. That's helpful because there's, you know, what you should do depends a lot on the timeline that you have. So this is also 2 weeks. So we're looking at some fast fixes today. Yeah, cool. That's a really important question, Navpreet, and you have a month that you again, and it sort of actually connects these two, right? Like it's a combination of these two. It's like you're particularly stuck in verbal, and it feels like the vocab work is not helping. I also think that there's a reason for why you're experiencing that. And I think that the basic thing, the core thing that I think is maybe applicable to you, Navpreet, is that you should shift to doing more reading comp and less more reading comp and less uh vocab. And I'm going to try to explain, I'll explain like why, and that is important. Then I'm going to talk about how to quickly get better at reading comp. Then I am going to talk about how to get better at, you know, how to break a plateau faster, basically, especially focusing on 2 weeks, high 150s. I want to say something that connects all three of these things. So we're going to do 3 things today, and it's going to, I think, answer all of the questions that I've seen so far. And if you want to throw a question into the mix along the way, please do, and I'll try to get to it. But I'm going to definitely answer these questions here. And I think that the overall theme is these are 2 of the hardest things in GRE studying. And these are, I think, things that are in part hard because the market is there's just some structural challenges of the GRE that I want to talk about. You know, like just why it's in general hard to prepare for the GRE. And then I also want to say these are very much solvable, but they sometimes take time. So I think that I'm going to speak specifically to solving these issues in these timelines. Like this is what you should do that's actionable. And it is your best shot at getting to where you want to be in the timeline that you have. That then like it may not be enough time, but if it's not enough time, like it's absolutely still a solvable issue. So cool. Okay. And then haven't done math in several years. Michaela, could you let me know how long you have been preparing for? Like how long have you been studying and what score, you know, if possible, if you're comfortable, you could chat just to me. You don't have to chat to everyone, but if you could tell me about the specific score increase you're looking for, that's gonna help me calibrate an answer to that question about quant. Because I think how to work with that timeline depends a bit on those 2 factors, how long you've been studying and you know, what kind of jump do you want to see? Cool. We are coming up toward the round 2 deadlines, right, for business school programs, and toward the deadlines for a lot of other academic programs. So we do at this time of year come up against some difficult questions of like, is there enough time? And I always want to say that like there absolutely is enough time. I've seen all kinds of trajectories play out. People try one year and then try again and get into their top choice. People, put it on hold for a year and get into their top choice. And just I've seen all kinds of things be possible. So I feel really confident in the possibility of everyone getting to where they want to be. It's just the question of how long it's going to take is really tricky to answer. Okay, so that's my big picture spiel about what we're going to do. I'm going to take a moment to structure my thinking about this. And so I'm going to just give us like a minute or two to pause while I do that. Just sort of relax, take a deep breath. That's a good part of GRE Prep too, is being relaxed. And then I'll come back in a moment and I'll kind of walk us through the lesson that we're going to do together. But I need now a moment to figure out how to stitch these 3 things together. And then we'll answer all the questions. And maybe the 4th stuff about quant. Michaela, if you want to add more detail to me, I'll add that in too. All right. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I think that I have designed for us a process that will answer our questions of what to do if you were stuck in verbal and looking to get into the high 160s quickly, what to do to get better at reading comp in a few days, and how do you get from the high 150s into the 160s in 2 weeks. And I want to offer maybe some helpful tips on each of these. And today I am going to be working with an interesting challenge, and my interesting challenge is that the stylus that I would normally use to do math work broke, and I wasn't able to get a replacement in time. And so instead of being able to present slides and draw on them on screen like I normally have done in my teaching for the last 8 years, I can't. But what I do have is a document camera, because I'm also weirdly a tarot reader, and I read a little Substack about the GRE and the tarot. But I have this document camera, and I'm going to use it to show everything handwritten. And I've been finding this is really nice. I've been doing this with my tutoring students today. This is my, I think, 4th hour of GRE today. And so I spend a lot of time with the GRE, right? Like I'm thinking about the GRE for at least 15 hours a week, sometimes more. And it's been really nice. So I can try to also maybe show some things about how to set up notes, because this is, I think, the big win, right? Big wins in terms of how to get better at RC in 2 weeks. One is think about how to use the paper better. And this is because the issue that can be fixed quickly is fatigue. You get fatigue because you are doing too much work when you read. And, up to a point, you can probably get that to work. But then there's a point where, especially in that second verbal section, you start to get tired. And in that moment, you need to be prepared, right, for the moment in which you get tired. But one thing that you can do is conserve energy by using the paper better. Like, think about the paper as like an extra brain, right? Like an extra source of memory that you're going to connect to your brain. And then your brain isn't using as much of its own like memory and processing power. So use the paper better, and then have a better strategy for how to spend your time. Specifically, to spend your time divided between the passage and the questions. And I'll tell you right now, usually the issue is that short passages, we try to read too fast when we need to, in fact, slow down. And that the opposite is true for long passages, right? That when we see a long passage, we need to have our mouse not under our hand, read slower. This is a new process for me, so I thank you for your patience. And therefore, we need to speed up and try to comprehend less. That's how we speed up. We attempt to understand less. And when we slow down, we try to understand more. And I'm going to tell you I taught about this today, so I just want to show you something actually. I knew there was a reason I had organized all these papers. So today I was working with a student, and we were doing a 2-passage timed set. And these are my notes, right? So this is what my work would look like if I was doing the official GRE. This is the amount that I would write down. So these are the notes. Here, we'll do this with colors, right? So these are the notes that I took for passage 1, which was short. And these are the notes that I took for passage 2 that was long and nasty, right? It was a super dense, boring, like intense, like literary critical theory nonsense jargon passage, like horrible passage, right? And really long with the scroll bar. And so these are the questions that we for the first passage, right? So those are the first passage questions. And then these are the second passage questions. And then in terms of what's right and wrong, I got this one right, this one right, this one right, this one right, this one right. And I got this one wrong. And then my student got this one right, this one wrong, this one right, this one right, this one right, this one wrong. Promise this is all going somewhere. So this is my student and this is me. And so I did a little bit better. I got 5 out of 6, 4 out of 5. I also finished about like a minute and a half before her, and I felt more confident in my answers. And I knew that question 1, I had an equal chance of being right or wrong. So I knew that I had 50-50 odds on the one I got wrong. I was confident. I knew kind of had a good sense of how I'd done, and I had finished sooner and I felt more relaxed. And obviously part of this is that this is my job and I've done it for 8 years. And, I know the test super well. And that's the skill that you have to build in studying, is knowing the test. And you don't have to spend 8 years building it. I promise you can do this in months, sometimes weeks, sometimes days. But I know the right process for taking the test. And so I can just go with confidence into any test, because it's not that I feel like I'm the best at math or that I'm the best at paying attention. Like, I'm not good at math, and I'm really not good at paying attention to detail naturally, but I know how to get there in the way that I take it. And the notes really help me in reading. And so this is what's different between me and my student, right? I took more time reading the short passage. So my student was on to the second passage before I had finished reading the first passage. So she was like into the questions for the second passage by the time I got into the second passage. Or by the time, sorry, I even got to the questions on the first passage. But then by like here, right, by question 5, I had caught up. And then I was done before she even got to question 6. So at this point, you would have thought, oh, wow, Kat's really behind. But by this point, I caught up, and by this point, I was done. And it's because I allowed myself to really understand this passage that was short, because I knew that if I really understood it, I could go fast with the questions, because I could hold all the information inside my head. So this is like all the info can be held inside my head. And I use the note taking to get there. And I take my time and I reread sentences multiple times, and I go around like I'm not just one and done, right? I'm circling and circling and circling with something like this. And look how detailed my notes are, and look how structured they are, right? Like, here's the main idea. Now it's a specific example. Now it's even more specific examples, and there's a contrast between two things, right? So I really understand the structure before I take a note. I read, I process, I understand structure, then I take my notes. Structured, a lot written down. This passage is probably a quarter of the length of this passage. Look how few notes I take. Just really big picture, right? There's some dudes, a sir, there's like a signifier and signified. There's the post-structuralists, and there's language, and there's something about like language and culture and self and whatever. And then the post-structuralists think that like words don't have universal meanings, and the structuralists think that words do have fixed meanings. So like post-structuralists not fixed, structuralists fixed. That's it. That's all I remember of the passage. You know, that's the vaguest idea, right? You're probably like, what was that passage about? I don't know. That's a vague idea. That's, you know, but that's all I needed. Because then I went and noticed that with these, I didn't use process of elimination, right? Anytime I use process of elimination, I write down A, B, C, D, E. So with these, I didn't need it. But with these, I did. This was a main idea question. But then when I got to the detail questions, 4, 5, and 6, I needed process of elimination. I wrote down A, B, C, D, E. I went through. Notice that sometimes I'd mark a couple, and then, you know, so maybe on the first one I'd mark 2, and then I'd decide between them. I wrote a simplified version of the main idea next to this question to help guide it, even though it was a detail question. I think these were all like detail inference type questions. Process of elimination, immediately knew. Process of elimination. What I remember here is I almost stopped. I was like, I think it's B. But then this was like a danger moment for me. But then I was like, no, I have to finish my process of elimination, right? I can't cut corners. I've been doing this for 8 years. And when I do a new time set, I still can't cut corners with this stuff. If I want to really be on it and guarantee that I'm correct. And so here, I pushed through the end of the process. And then this one was one where B was correct, but C was not correct. It was select all, and I had also chosen C. And I was really on the fence about it. It was like right at that border of like, is it or is it not a provable inference? And for me, there's always going to be like 1 or 2 inference questions on the test that are just like that, right? So keep in mind that like our goal is never to get every single question right. It is to get like, you know, 80% of questions right. Like I count mine a full success because I got, you know, the questions that I knew absolutely I could get, and then I didn't get the question that I wasn't sure I could get. So that's a lot of detail, right? But I really wanted to illustrate that like that's like cool. Sophia, I don't think so. I don't think with the shorter test that skipping around is working as well. I think that, you know, think about this, right? Like if you can do the vocab questions, you can do reading comp. So if you're good at the vocab questions, you can get good at reading comp because it's the same. So I think that there's a couple concrete things that you can do to improve. So how I would suggest practicing is do a reading comp, do a timed reading comp set. You know, 3 to 8 questions, 1 or 2 passages, 2 minutes per question. Lots of resources you know, they're Magoosh, Kaplan, they make specific time set tools you can use. You can pull things from a book, you can, you know, use some other app. Like there's a lot of ways to generate time sets that are out there that are good. Just find one that, you know, is the right fit for you. I'm happy to give a suggestion too if you want. So do that. And then specifically note, like have a separate stopwatch running. Note the time division between passage and question. So like notice when you go from passage to question and like check the stopwatch at that moment. So have like 2 timers will be running, right? There'll be a countdown timer that'll run for this and a count up timer that'll run for this. Then use the notes. You know, this is the practice note taking deliberately. I promise it's one of a really good quick fix. Use the notes, you know, review and assess the efficacy of your notes. So many S's of your notes and of your time division, you know, and then finally you should commit to like 1 adjustment and then repeat right away. So it's like you're gonna do like a time set, you're gonna reflect on it, You're going to think of a fix. And then if you have time, you're going to do another time set to implement that fix. That is the basic pattern of like all reading comp improvement, especially the strategic stuff that can be done in a couple of weeks. So I would just focus on that, like that type of practice once a day for as many days as you have. Keeping in mind, you want to take the day before the test off. You know, you don't want to push too much in the last couple of weeks, especially for reading, right? Because reading requires a lot of attention. So you also, I think, two underrated things are be rested. You know, prioritize rest. It's really hard to do. You know, we do not live in a world that wants us to prioritize rest. So you really have to kind of fight for that. It promise it helps with reading. I'm going to tell my Thanksgiving story that I always tell, but now it is Thanksgiving, so it's really appropriate for this time of year. So prioritize rest and read slower. Everyone tries to read too fast on a screen. This is like just a measurable scientific fact. So you have to, and everyone just has to read at a certain pace to comprehend, right? So if you try to read faster than the pace that you need to comprehend, it's not going to work. What you're going to do is change the level at which you're expecting yourself. So you're going to change the expectation. You're not going to change the capacity. You have the capacity. We're going to match the expectation to the capacity. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I think about it. So basically, read slower, do whatever you need to do to read slower, which is often using more notes, sort of adjust your thing. And then read slower can also be helped by paying attention to the time division. So these things are connected. And then this is a way of practicing that I hope will like allow you to see improvement in a way that aligns with your time scale. And it's this repeated time set stuff. This is also all applicable to improving at vocabulary questions. So I want to come to the question of, I need to get my other clock out. The question of vocabulary questions. So one thing I do want to say about studying vocabulary, if you are finding that you are having vocab trouble when you are doing text completion and sentence equivalence questions, is a different situation if you are finding you have to look up a lot of words in reading comp. This is my theory today. So we'll see. You know, it's always a little bit of theory. If you are doing reading comp and you're like, oh gosh, I need to look up a lot of words, this is a sign that vocab is important to be studying. If you find that it's just when you're practicing sentence equivalence and text completion, then I think that your time is better spent focusing on reading. And I just outlined, you know, just like the method the 2 paired timed RC set technique that I just laid out, that's the path to improvement in a short span of time. If you find that when you're doing the reading, you're just like, it's just getting to comfort with the passages is too hard because the word, there's a lot of holes to fill in the language, that just means that you may need to build vocab. And that is just where it can sometimes be slower. You know, that's just sometimes a slower fix. Because I'm going to say this, nobody really ever believes in me, but it's true. The maximum number of words that you ever should try to learn per week is 50. And I don't know exactly why 50 is the maximum, but I learned this from someone who like had really studied learning science very deeply and thought about how to apply learning science to teaching tests. And I have thus found that I like agree with all, I've tested and found that I agree with all of his conclusions. So I'm just going to trust this one. And this is going to take you 4 to 5 hours per week. And again, this is sort of an average calculation, but there are some limits. There are some time limits on the acquisition of words, right? It may be that you just need to acquire, 1,500 words. That's how much your English vocabulary needs to grow. And it's hard to say, right? Like, this is a hard thing to diagnose. I can't give you a specific number, but you may just need that time because there is just a maximum you can learn. And if this is your issue, you should look up something called a Lightner box. There's a lot of resources online about it. This is like the gold standard way to learn words, and then just stick to it. And I've seen people transform their reading through vocab. So absolutely can be crucial. However, this is a slower fix. A faster fix, if you are just finding that the vocab and the vocab questions is hard, focus on reading. And this is because the vocab in most published GRE questions is too hard. And I'm not like talking about a specific, I'm not trying to like talk bad or good about a specific provider. I think this is just like very agnostically, like I think this is just a failing in the available GRE materials. I say this like 17 times a day. No one ever believes me, but I think about this all the time, right? And I'm convinced this is true. Every student that I have seen this year, so 100% of my students and colleagues and students report this to be true after taking the official test. Gosh, oh wow, the vocabulary was the vocabulary was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to take the GRE on Thanksgiving Day. This is sort of weird stuff I do. I write a little Substack about the GRE, and I'm reviving it. I've taken a hiatus, and I wanted to I wanted to have something really fun for people because I feel bad that I've taken this hiatus. And I'm going to take the GRE on Thanksgiving Day, and I'm going to write a little blog post about it. So I'll have some thoughts maybe about like just the new format too that might apply to this once I've done that. But this is my general sense of where the test is at right now. So, think about which of these is you. This can probably be done fast. This is probably going to have to be a slow fix. Exactly what fast or slow means just depends a lot on the person. With GRE, we always have to be thinking in the context of time because it is a timed test, and because learning is not a consistent process, right? Like learning is a process of trial and error, and processes of trial and error just are hard to predict. So I think too much about learning science. If you were trying to go from the high 150s to the high 160 in 2 weeks, if my camera is trying to be focusing, thank you. In 2 weeks, oh, I forget, I have to keep my hand there. You're going to do that. This is absolutely doable. However, it's hard, and I'll tell you why it's hard and why it can be done. So at this level, I think of there being 3 layers to the GRE. There's level 1, which is we just need to learn the facts and mechanics. We just need to acquire words. We need to get better at spelling. It's not gonna happen for any of us probably. We learn facts and mechanics. We need to acquire words. If that's our issue, we need to memorize formulas. We need to do math drills. We need to have really good arithmetic and algebra. We need to know all the different geometry formulas and how to apply them. We need to, sort of know, how to do basic stats. We need to know like all the sort of core topics. We need to understand fractions, decimals, and percents. We need to think about number properties. We need to think about exponents and roots and factors and dividing. And we need to think about evens and odds and number lines and positives and negatives and consecutive integers, stuff like that. And so this phase is often a lot about flashcards. And it's a lot about like drill sheets, drills. So this could be like, you know, specifically for the GRE. Lots of different providers make drills. This could also be just like general math worksheets, you know, drawing from high school, correct, you know, middle school and high school for that stuff. The flashcards will tell you which facts are allowed. And so you can find those in the official guide. That's the purple book that ETS makes. Or the other resource that you could get is the MPrep 5-pound book. I say this truly not to stump for us, but because it's just, I find I continue to really like working with it, and it seems to really help people that I work with. So I like it. I continue to like it. These also will give you fact sheets that you can use to make flashcards. So, you know, these are things. And then I think what's fun about this is that like, this is the layer that I would work at for this very specific situation of being in the, trying to get to the mid 150s, right? Because I think the mid 150s is the point where like, you can get there just by being good at the core math. And good at also means comfortable with, right? So this is always like maybe about building skills, or maybe it's about building a different relationship to those skills. I work with a lot of students who tell me they're bad at math and they're not. I would think about this, right? Do you lack skill or knowledge? Do flashcards and drills. It's super solvable. Or do you just have a story that you're bad at math? Are you telling yourself a story? Just think about it. Because that sometimes is also something that you can impact kind of quickly, is like just boosting confidence by realizing that you've built skills, right? Maybe you've built skills and you just need to build confidence in them. So that's a fast fix. And then coming back to this question, so level 1, I think gets you like up to the mid 150s, right? Like I just talked about. But then we have level 2, and level 2 is about problem solving. And this is where we're going to be doing a mix of timed sets and untimed problems. So, you know, facts and mechanics is sort of solely untimed. You know, this is our untimed phase. This is going to be our mix of timed and untimed phase. And this is going to be our mostly timed phase. I wanted more soothing color, so that's what we're getting. It doesn't make any sense. And then this is going to be about strategy. And so to fix problem solving, you're going to want to think about process, which is about like the actual steps you take. Here again, as in reading, the issue is probably that you need to slow down at the beginning of problems. Slow down at start of problems. Every problem has 2 phases. Phase 1, you have to understand and process. And each problem type has a different version of this, right? So for example, long word problems, which is a common pain point for many people. Usually the issue here is that people don't take enough time. You need to really process these, like translate piece by piece, translate slowly, reread, right? Like slow down in phase one in order to go fast in phase two, which is then the mechanics. And so we proceed in this order, right? We start with the mechanics because they're the foundation. Good mechanics allow us to focus on improving our process. And then our process leads to us, this can probably get us up to like 160. And then the strategy can get us above 160. But strategy is in some ways the most difficult part, right? So part of the issue is just that as our score gets higher, each point of improvement gets harder. This is just because the GRE is a normal distribution, right? So like, if you wanted to get a 50th percentile score, and if you wanted to get a 51st, maybe that amount of effort gets you from like, this is going to be completely wrong, but let's just say like that gets you from 150 to like 153. I don't actually know quite how this works, but if you want to go from like 158 to 162, that's going to be like going from like 89th to like 95th percentile. Like it's just a lot fewer people who are scoring at that level. And it's not because people can't. I think anyone can. It just gets harder because you have to just get sharper and work harder. They want to make you work harder, I think, for each point of improvement. So this just is hard. It just requires hard work. And then I think here the trick is usually this: you need to do less in some way. So what we do to get to here is we're like building capacity, right? This is where we're increasing capacity. But then here at the top, what we want to do is bring down the bar for ourselves. We need to lower the bar to meet our capacity. And what this means is you need to train yourself. This is very simple, to aim for 100% of 80%. This is like the most important thing I think I can tell you today, no matter what point in your studies you are at. We are not preparing for perfection. That is so important because in school we're trained to strive for perfection, right? It's like get 100% on the test. Let's just assume no one gets 100% on this test. I've never seen anyone who's gotten every single question right. Never. Right? People get 170s and they don't get every single question right. I had a colleague try to do it and really dedicate themselves to this goal, God bless them, and they didn't get there. So we're not aiming to be perfect. And if we try to be perfect, it will get in our way. So we have to let things go, right? We have to say like, I'm going to learn 80% of the math content, but I'm going to learn it really well. So some things that you do not need to dedicate too much time to, like don't overemphasize these topics. They are probability and combinatorics. Here's why. I'm going to tell you. This is maybe my last big thing for today. So this is my most important thing. Train yourself to aim for 100% of 80%. And I have a specific way that you can do this, which at this stage, right? Like in 2 weeks, specifically in 2 weeks, 4 out of 5 sets. So you are going to do 5 question time sets, quant and verbal, and you are only allowed to solve 4 of 5. You are going to just convince yourself that this works. And through repetition and review, you're going to figure out how to pick the right ones, right? People are like, how do I pick the right ones? And the answer to that is you just practice it. It is just an issue of practice. And this is the way that I always see work, you know? That's just my best advice for you. It may not work for 100% of people. My best advice on how to do this in both verbal and quant is to do this. And if you only have 2 weeks and you're looking to go from 158 into the 160s, this is your best shot at getting yourself over that hurdle. You do not have time to build more skill, but you can lower the bar by trying to do less. You know, you fix timing issues in quant by only doing 11 of 12, 10 of 12, you know, but 9 of 12, right? So you got to balance how accurate can I be on what I do? How much time do I need? How many questions do I try to give up? So you just train. That's a complicated thing, right, to unpack. So you just train it through kind of like muscle memory. Here is why I want to answer this question that I asked. Why should we not emphasize probability and combinatorics? And I want to talk about this because I think it's something I've been wondering about for a long time. I think I understood something I've been wondering about for a long time today. But I also see there's maybe another question. So let me just quickly check to see if I've good, amazing, excellent. Oh, Chica, I am so happy. Navpreet, yes, practice taking notes for RC. I think it's one of the best things you can do in a month. Absolutely, especially if you've never done it. Like, do it. If you don't like it, you know, and remember, you have to trial and error, right? So do it a few times and work and find a way of taking notes that helps you. I promise that there is a version of note taking that will help you, especially if you're doing it for SE and TC, and those are going better, right? So take what you're doing for sentence equivalence and text completion and apply it to reading comp. And I think that could really like give you a big boost in a month. Absolutely. Yay. So why should we not over focus on probability and combinatorics? So there's a GRE logic story time. I'm going to go to the whiteboard now so I can move us away from this chaos while I tell my story. So here is my story for all of you. The Ikra, thank you for that question. The recordings will be posted on YouTube by our team. I have no personal control over that process nor involvement in it. I do not even receive the recording links myself, but you know, you can find it on YouTube eventually. I don't quite know what timeline they're on, but it will eventually be on YouTube on our GRE channel. So here's why you don't over focus on probability. And there's a GRE question type called resolve a paradox. So I'm also going to show us an example of me resolving a paradox today. And so what I have noticed is that there is not a lot of probability on the GRE, right? I've noticed this. I've taken the GRE. I take the GRE on average once a year. So I've taken it like, you know, probably 8, 9 times, 10 times. I don't know. I've taken it a lot of times. I'm going to take it again on Thanksgiving Day. So that'll be my first time with the short test. I've taken it at home. I've taken it at test centers. I've taken it when I knew not, you know, I took the GRE without studying. I took it with studying. I took it after teaching it and after teaching it. So I've noticed this. It's just not a ton. But what students say is that so much probability, so much more probability than I expected. And I was like, huh, this is really weird because I have never noticed this. My colleagues have not generally reported this to me when they've taken the test. Like, you know, we don't seem to be seeing it. It's not reflected in the published materials, but like so many of my students come and say this, right? And I, you know, I trust my perceptions. I trust my colleagues' perceptions. And I, you know, I also trust my students, right? Like I trust that my students are having this valid experience of feeling that they're seeing a lot of probability on the test. And I thought about this for a long time. And so what I decided to do is to just say, I'm going to teach more probability. And I did, and I thought about all these ways to teach it, and I've taught it to so many people in so many different ways. You know, I just got really obsessed with teaching probability, but I did not find that it particularly seemed to help. And I taught a lot of probability. And I kept hearing there's so much more probability than I expected. And I'd be like, gosh, we spent like 25% of our quant time on probability, and you're still telling me you're seeing a ton of probability. And so what I thought about was that we should instead, what I realized today actually is that this is explained by something really simple. And this is what it is. Why do I know there is not a lot of probability? And I know this because I am bad at probability, right? I finally was like, oh no, I need to confess today. I'm bad at probability. When tutoring students bring me hard probability, I die like of panic inside. But I can get there, right? Like I can figure it out, but it's still not my favorite. I know I'm bad at it. I know there's a percentage of problems I can't do, right? I know there's a level, like hard probability, I cannot do. I can do easy and medium. Okay. And yet I am 100%, I am like 99% confident. We have a 99th percentile score guarantee at Manhattan Prep, not 100th percentile score guarantee at Manhattan Prep, but I'm 99% confident that I could take the test any day at any time. You could stop me in the street and be like, sit down and take the GRE. And I believe that I could take it and like score pretty well. And the reason that I believe that is, the reason that I have that confidence is that it's not that I need to get better at probability. It's that I have confidence in my process for taking the test. And part of that, today, I think everything I've talked about really comes down to like, have confidence in your have a process that you have confidence in, right? Like, so you have to build a process that you have confidence in. But then sometimes you just have to like teach yourself to trust it. So there's a level too, and especially for folks with short timelines, I think this is more powerful than you think. Like, be teach yourself to believe in the work that you've put in and in where you're at, and to trust yourself that you know what you're doing, and you've worked hard to understand, and that you also maybe know the things that you don't know. Like, I know I can't do hard probability, and that helps me because I just let it go. And I think confidence is what allows, two things. Yeah, confidence, I think, is at the root of being able to make good decisions about problems. And so if I really wanted to boil down today, if I'm approaching like the nuggets at the heart of it all, train yourself to aim for 100% of 80%. All things are possible, but not always all timelines. And that's okay. And so you can always work with it in some way. I promise I've seen it all. And if you're like, you haven't seen it all, reach out. And I can maybe offer more specific advice, but all things are possible, but not all timelines. And then be confident, build confidence intentionally. And part of that is to prioritize rest, right? Like when we are physical wellness, physical well-being, when we feel physically good in our bodies, it's way easier to feel good about other things in our lives. And that's my final story. If you're like, good, I've got what I need, drop out. I have like maybe a couple minutes more to share. So if you want to hear the story of the Thanksgiving miracle, I will tell you the story of the Thanksgiving miracle. And if you're like, cool, I'm good, I got what I need, awesome, that's what I want to hear from everyone. If you have other questions, you can ask. So the Thanksgiving miracle is, normally what I see, right, is that practice test score, and I'm going to stop screen sharing for this. So normally what I see is that like practice test score and official test score are somewhat aligned, right? People generally score within a couple points of their last practice test score, especially the ETS practice test, right? So these things tend to align. So if you've been scoring like consistently 155s, it's likely you'll score in the like 155 to 158 range, maybe even up to 160. but sometimes they've seen big jumps, right? So sometimes they've seen big jumps in a short span of time. And the best case that I know is a student who I worked with in class. I worked with as a tutoring student for a little bit, and then she kind of disappeared. It was like, probably a little bit, it was around like that point in October when sometimes people start to feel that the deadlines are coming, and the amount of time remaining, and like what needed to be done started to feel overwhelming. So she kind of disappeared, and sometimes that happens. And I gave her a couple weeks, and then I was getting ready to reach out and kind of text her and see how she was. And it was right after Thanksgiving, and she messaged me, and she had gone from scoring like a one, maybe 155, 156 to scoring like a 163 range in both quant and verbal, right? Like big jump from mid 150s into higher 160s. I'm so sorry. This was like 6 years ago, so I don't remember all exact details. I should look it up maybe and see if I can find our emails. But I was like, how did you do it? Right? That's so unusual. I generally say that can't be done. And she was like, well, I sort of threw up my hands and said, I hate this. And I went home for Thanksgiving, and I hung out with my family and my friends, and I rested, and I ate good food. And then I was like, gosh, I'd like a little time away from my family. And so I snuck off to take the GRE kind of as a, it was like a break from hanging with her family. She didn't tell anyone she was doing it. She just went. She hadn't been cramming, right? Hadn't even doing GRE. She was rested. She was happy. She felt good about herself. She'd had a lot of sleep. There wasn't a lot of pressure. No one knew she was doing it. It was actually kind of nice to go and like get away. So she made it this really optimally pleasant experience for herself. And in doing so, saw a really unusual jump in score. So that is a thing I saw. Yeah, right. So weird things are possible. I had a student go from 160 to 165 quant earlier this fall between last official practice test and main test. And I think the biggest thing was that he just stopped studying as intensely, you know. I think like he pushed pretty hard, but then he really like tapered and rested in the last few weeks. He actually adopted puppies, so he had to be really focused on them. He couldn't focus on the GRE that much. And it was, I think, I have a theory that helps. I have to talk to him and see if he agrees about my theory about the puppies. He may not, but that's my theory. Yeah. You are so welcome. Oh, one last thing before you all go. If you like the things that I have to say, if you find me helpful as a teacher, in an effort to further share my thoughts about the GRE in a way that's like, fun and accessible, and that I enjoy and that kind of feeds me. I also write a little blog, a little Substack about the GRE. And it says it is about the GRE and the tarot, but it's really kind of also about study skills and anxiety management, being calm, right? Not getting stressed, which is an important skill. And I'm gonna be like launching a couple other little GRE related things recently. So soon, sorry, very soon, and there'll be some more news about what I'm doing there. And then I'll always be here, doing hopefully these free prep hours. So come back. I'm doing another one next month. It'll be just like this. It'll be an open Q&A. It'll be unpredictable. So my hope is most of you don't come back and that you get where you want to be, because in that timeline. So I would love to see you again, but I hope for you that I don't. But if you are still studying in December, come back and do that. You are so welcome. Great. Appreciate your participation. Appreciate your coming along for the ride. And happy studying. Thank you, Sophia. That makes me so happy. That's so nice. Yeah, I'm gonna post on Monday, and then I think I'm gonna do regular posts on Mondays. I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna say this now, so I commit to it, because that's an important part of GRE prep. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go on more about study skills if I don't stop myself. Bye, everyone. Take